Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today, in this episode, we're going to take a look at the Dwarf, the first of the races as classes in Dungeon Crawl Classics. Do you like to play the rough and tumble Dwarf, short and mighty, carrying a hammer or axe and a shield and rough, doing mighty deeds in battle similar to the warrior? If you like the idea of playing this a race as a class, you might like to play the Dwarf. We're going to go through the entire race right after this. Stay with me. Looking at the Dwarf, so you are a short, stout demi-human with an unabashed love of gold. Nothing pleases you more than the gleam of gems and the solidity of a gold ingot. You love to count your coins. The sight of treasure sometimes makes you lose your head, just as does the swirling chaos of combat. You love to fight wildly, swinging a weapon with brutal effectiveness as you chop your way through the foes. Hit points, second only to the warrior. You get a 1d10 hit points at each level, and you would always modify that by your stamina. Weapon training, you get most weapons, right? And alignment, you can be any alignment. And we slide on to attack modifiers. Similar to the warrior, you get a D3. A D3, at least it starts at a D3. It goes up through your rankings as you increase in levels. Your attack die, your attack modifier die, will increase by 3. Will increase as you go up, starting with a D3. Mighty deeds, also similar to the warrior, you have the ability to do these incredible actions. So in 5th edition, D&D 5th edition, they don't have a mechanic to allow you to do called shots. In Dungeon Crawl Classic, they do, and they call those mighty deeds, and it's only really available to the warrior and the dwarf. So this would be like, for example, you take your sword, you plunge it into the chest of your foe, and you hold on to it as you drag it down into a pit of swords, something like that, over the cliff, something like that. And that would be a mighty deed. And so you'd have to go through the mechanic of you have to hit, and you have to meet the requirements of that mighty deed, which is rolling a 3 on a D3, and then your mighty deed is successful. Sword and board, only the dwarf gets the ability to use a shield bash. So in addition to all of his attacks, he has the ability to also do a shield bash, and that would use, though, a lesser. You don't use a D20 for that. You would use a D14. But this is in addition to the other attacks, so that's pretty cool. And the shield bash, it does a small amount of damage, just 1d3. You have a dwarf has infravision up to 60 feet, and he's a dwarf. He's slow. He doesn't walk as fast as everyone else. He only gets movement of 20 feet. Underground skills. This is one of the coolest things, I think, is the dwarf can actually smell gold and gems. He has a nose for it. He can track them down and find that gold and gems up to a certain distance. Luck. The dwarf has the ability to choose one weapon, one specific kind of weapon, for example, a long sword, not just swords, a long sword, and say, with that weapon, I get to apply my luck modifier. Now, if he has a negative luck modifier, he may not want to pick his favorite weapon. He might want to say, I don't know, a cudgel, something that he wouldn't normally want to use. Languages, he speaks Common and Dwarven, and would also get another language modified by depending on his intelligence modifier. Action dice. A dwarf's shield bash is always in addition to his base actions. Sure, he has action dice instead of a simple plus or minus modifier. Here we look at his chart. Here you see that attack dice or deed die. It starts off at level 1 as a D3, but then moves up to D4, D5, making that 3 or better on that for your deed be more easily attained. Your crit die, similar to the warrior, has increasing crit die tables and higher numbers you can roll on that. Your action die, this is how many attacks you get. You only have one attack at the beginning, in addition to your shield bash, so you would always get your attack dice and your shield dice. But starting at 5th level, you get another attack, and at 10th level, you get 3 attacks. And then you have your reflex, fortitude, and willpower modifier is +1 at the beginning. So this is your willpower. Your willpower is based off of your personality, and so if your personality was already +1, you would get an additional +1. So that would be +2. Let's see. Let's read some of these bullets here. A dwarf's attack modifier is rolled anew according to the appropriate die with each attack. The results modifies both attacks and damage rolls. At higher levels, the dwarf adds both a die and a fixed value. So you can see that there. In addition to basic action dice, the dwarf receives a shield bash using the D4, as we covered. So, like harkening back to the original days of Dungeons and Dragons, our dwarf has titles at his different levels and alignment. A lawful level 1 dwarf would be called an agent. A chaotic level 3 dwarf would be called an exile, but a neutral one at level 5 would be called a thane. Alright, so that's your dwarf, and not seeing much else here. So that's the dwarf. What do you think? Do you like the dwarf? So this is the first of the race as a class. What do you think of having a dwarf only being able to do the warrior-like abilities? That's quite different from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's unique. It harkens back to the original days of Dungeons & Dragons, as I understand. And I think it's kind of nice, kind of neat. I like the abilities. I do wonder, I mean, this by the rule doesn't have a way to do a dwarf as a cleric or a dwarf as a thief, for example. So we would have to homebrew that, right? So Dungeon Crawl Classic allows a lot of space for us to talk about, hey, I would really like him to be able to do that. You probably have to be able to lose the ability to gain an ability. So if you wanted to, let's say, a thief, right, and you wanted to do a dwarf thief, then you might have to give up your nose for gold to be able to get some sort of thieving abilities. That's how I'd rule it. What do you think? How would you rule it? What do you think of the dwarf? Do you like the dwarf? If you do, if you have thoughts about this, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. I'll comment if I can. And otherwise, if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate it. And hit that notification bell, because I've been doing all of the different classes, and I'm going to do all the races as well. So that's coming up soon. But until then, take care. See you later.